I'm Peter. Welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter, where we take the mystery out of the tarot and help you bring this ancient practice into everyday life. In this podcast, we'll talk about life, tarot, and everything in between. So grab your tarot deck, get comfortable, and start your journey to tarot with Bonnie and Peter. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter. Bonnie and I are here today to talk about, let me lay out a scenario first, right? You're walking into your favorite, woo-woo metaphysical store, big wall of tarot decks, and, of course, Bonnie, which one I'm visualizing.
Me too.
Right? So you've got all kinds, maybe dozens, maybe hundreds of decks to choose from. And what do? What are your go-to cards? What are your make or break themes, cards, colors when you're selecting a deck? So Bonnie and I today, we're going to talk about those things that we look for and those things that might make us cringe when we're looking to select our next deck. So a little bit different, maybe helpful for those of you that have been learning the tarot and might want to expand beyond your first deck, or for those of you who maybe push against or challenge some of the things that we're talking about. We'd love to hear from you. What are your favorite things to look for? Are there certain cards in a tarot deck that really make or break a deck for you, where you look at the card and think, oh my goodness, I have to have this deck, and it really doesn't matter what the other 77 cards are? Or you look at it and go, oh my goodness, I couldn't own this deck even if I wanted to. How are you today, Bonnie? How does that? That's actually, the more I describe this episode, the more fun this might be.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I'm great. I actually had that thrill this morning. So, as we're recording this episode, it's the beginning of September, and if you've been listening for a long time, you probably know how much Peter and I love Halloween, and that spark of Halloween, came through me. So for my morning draw this morning, I was like, is it too early to start using Halloween decks? And I'm like, no, I have so many Halloween decks. And I'm like, even if I dedicated 1 week, to each deck, that only gives me 8 weeks of using Halloween decks. So I'm great, Peter, because this morning I used a Halloween deck for my morning draw, and it gave me that sense of oh my God, I love tarot so much, and I love Halloween so much, and it just filled me with so much excitement. So I had to share that.
No,
so I'm doing great, and I think this episode is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we'll have to do a Halloween themed episode. I think we set the bar pretty high last year around Halloween. For those of you that haven't watched our Halloween episodes, because I think we did a 2-part episode. Bonnie and I we're full on costume. We take Halloween very seriously. So, and of course, I now have a new Halloween, themed deck that I can add courtesy of my friend and co-host. So for those of you, I think I may have mentioned I had some surgery a few weeks back, and my dear friend and co-host Bonnie came and visited me with a lovely gift, which was the Trick or Treat tarot deck. So I'm pretty excited about
the
Halloween tarot deck. That's right. The Trick or Treat's the one I have. The Halloween
is it called
deck.
the Halloween, or is it the Happy Halloween? I can't remember.
I think it's
for Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween, and in the nice portable tin.
In a tin.
So, I know. So
I'm so jealous. I should have bought myself one too. I have the full size deck of that, and that little tin has been in my list of must haves. And but I bought it for you, Peter. So.
Yes. No. Well, look. Thank you.
I might have to get it for myself. I don't know.
It's I've been finding, I guess in some ways sort of related to our topic today, because I think the criteria you use to own or buy a deck probably changes. And there would have been a time where I would have avoided the tins like the plague. I wanted a full size I wanted a full-size deck. And because I have, like I've got pretty long hands. I think even like for masculine hands, I have pretty long hands. And I don't know if it's because I play keys or, I don't know, but I like a deck that feels good in my hands. It's one of the reasons why the oversized Gaian deck, Gaian Tarot deck is still one of my favorite. But more and more, I think I have 4 or 5 tins now. I have a couple of, I think, an angel and demon kind of deck that pair. I've got them both in tins. I have Chris Ann's Lightseers Tarot. I have both the full size and the tin. Now, of course, I've added to my Halloween themed deck. I have that tin. There are a few, and I'm liking them more and more because they're portable. I bring them with me when I travel for work or when I travel for pleasure.
This is a great segue. Okay, we didn't even plan this. And this is the perfect segue into this episode, Peter, because the size of the deck matters, right?
Yep.
So that could be a make or break factor for people. So you just mentioned in the past, you never would have gotten, a tarot deck in a tin. I am enamored with decks in tins. I don't know why. I have like average size hands for a woman, but when decks are really large, for me, they're hard to shuffle. And there's something about, I don't like super tiny decks. Some decks in tins are really tiny. I don't enjoy that. But, I don't know. There's something about like that smaller version of a deck. I like to have both sizes. If the deck comes in the tin version and the full size version, I kind of like to have both of them. And that's why I've been waiting to get the Halloween tarot in the tin because I have the full size version. But yeah, there's something about it in a tin. I don't know what it is, but it just appeals to me. So there's one thing, like, do you like tins? Do you not like tins? Do you like large size tarot decks or like normal size? And even the thickness, right? Like some tarot decks are like really thick and those can get really difficult to shuffle, right? So, yeah.
Even the material makes a difference, like the quality of the paper, whether it's coated or not coated. One of the things that I like, I think about the most recent deck I bought, which is the Winter Season Tarot deck by Danielle Norman. It shuffles so easily, but the cardstock, it's a nice, thick cardstock. So when I discovered that, because I bought it, of course, where I bought it, right? I bought it at Healing Moon. I kind of pulled it out. I couldn't take the whole deck out because it was still wrapped in its band, and I wasn't sure about whether or not I would buy it. But I slid a card out, and I was like, "Oh, the cards feel nice," and then of course slid it back in. And then the very first thing I did when I bought it was snap the little paper band that was keeping them all together and then shuffle it. And it was like, oh, it felt so good to shuffle the deck. But you're right. There are some decks, and I can think of, some decks. There's one that in particular that's very popular. And I don't use it that much because I find the cardstock to be pretty thin. And I'm afraid to tear it, or it bends easily, or just doesn't feel right in my hands when I'm shuffling it. So, kudos to store owners who allow, kind of patrons to manipulate the deck. I know that's difficult because it means you basically have to unseal the deck. I know Megan is great for that. If you ever ask and, she's got the deck available, you can kind of manipulate it. But to me, I like the feel of the deck. So the same thing you're saying, right? That, that the size of, I was going to say size matters, that the size of a deck matters, right? No.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, the tin, like for client work, it's my tin version. I've got the lid right here for those that are watching, like it's the Centennial edition, but in the tin, because I can lay more cards out in the space that I save, for tarot work. And because of technology and working at a distance, I have to have my computer screen in front of me and my camera in front of me. And it's not like I can have a table that's huge. So it actually allows me to work with, if I'm doing like a 6-card narrative, if I'm doing, sometimes I'll do like a 3x3x3 tableau, I can lay 9 cards in front of me, no problem. Whereas if I was using the regular size deck, that would be difficult.
Yes, that is so true.
Yeah. So there you go. Look at that. We haven't even talked about specific cards yet.
I know. See,
know.
anything goes here, Peter.
So the other thing, because I'm literally looking at the deck that I've got sitting in front of me, which is, this my client deck, the little tin of the Centennial Edition. And we mentioned this the last time with reversals. And I want the back of the deck to not give away whether or not the card is reversed or upright. And I know that sounds weird for a guy who I reset my deck. Like before we recorded this, I was flipping through the deck just to kind of gauge, my memory. Okay, what cards do I look for? What are make or break? And as I was going through it, I was resetting this is Two of Cups was upside down, upright.
Because you pulled that last time.
Correct, right? So that's exactly it. So when I put it back in, of course, I've been shuffling and working with the deck since. And had I have done client work, and I hadn't done client work because I'm in recoup mode, but had I done client work, that card would have come out upside down. It would have been a reversed card. Anyway, so I like the backs to not give away whether or not the card is upright or not. I know that's less of an issue for you, but
and we did talk about this a little bit in the last episode. And I don't have an opinion either way about that. It doesn't bother me if they're not like. If they don't look exactly the same, if they're upside down or right side up. So yeah, that's not a deal breaker for me.
Yeah. And I don't know why it is. And it's not, I shouldn't say it's a deal breaker. And I don't know why it is either, because even when I do my client work, and even my personal work, I don't put the cards face down first and then turn them up. I actually flip them face up as I'm doing the work. So it's not like I'm not revealing anything. I don't know what it is. It's weird. It is weird how we get, stuck in our neural pathways, what works for us. And then, maybe it's just, I'm a creature of habit. I don't know. But anyway.
And that's okay. We all have preferences, right? That's just a preference that you have. And what I'm learning, later on in life as, we're on this journey, that we don't always have to interpret or analyze things, right? So for you, it's like, if you just like it to be that way, it's okay, right? We don't have to, what's the word I'm trying to say? Like, figure out why we like that, or I can't think of the word.
Well, I mean, and I'd be in my head, most of the time. So I'd probably be trying to figure out why, but you're
defend
right.
it. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes. We don't have to defend why we like something.
Who knows why? Okay.
Who knows why? Okay. Should we get into it?
Yeah.
Do we want to?
Let's get into specific
Okay.
cards. All right. You go ahead. What? You're
me
going
first?
through? Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I feel like I talked a lot. I'm going to stop talking for a bit.
Well, that's what we're doing here, Peter. We have a podcast. We talk. It's okay. Okay. So if I'm looking for a new deck, and I actually do watch a lot of flip through videos, because I don't live very close to like I'm out in the country. So in order for me to go somewhere, it takes a little while. So if I'm thinking of a deck and I don't have access to actually go somewhere and look at the deck, I look at flip through videos, because I want to get a sense. I can tell if I'm going to like the deck or not. So I do this quite a bit. So some of the cards that I specifically look for, and this might change and has been changing a little bit over time, but if you've been listening for a while, this is probably not going to surprise you. But the Ten of Swords, that could be a deal breaker for me, but sometimes if I love the deck and I don't like the Ten of Swords, I'll still get the deck. But that's one card for me that, and I know we have differing opinions about the Ten of Swords, but if it's, I don't know, like, I guess for me, okay, I'll backtrack and say, whenever I'm looking at a deck, and this could be a fault actually of mine, instead of me just going for what feels good to me, I think about the client and I think about people that I could potentially be working with. And I never want to get decks that are like super, what's the word? Like they look violent, or like it's really disturbing.
Or confronting, that the image is confronting.
Thank you. Exactly. So if the Ten of Swords, like if I were to pull that in a reading for a client and they're like, oh my God, what is happening in this card? I feel like sometimes the image speaks louder than, like they're going to have an interpretation of what that card looks like or what that card means to them just by looking at it. So I think for me, the Ten of Swords, if it's overly confronting, I kind of like, I don't know how much I like that. But again, I'm thinking about how I think the client would think about that. And maybe that's not the best thing to think about. Anyway, that's one of my cards.
Sorry,
definitely
I'm going to use you on you there because you said, and then you started to almost apologize or try and justify,
yes.
But just let it be. Be okay with why, be okay with why you choose or how you choose the Ten of Swords. It's okay, Bonnie.
Thank you. Yeah, and then I'll talk about the death card too, because I think a lot of cards that depict death, that look like death in the deck, might be confronting to people. So the Ten of Swords often looks like the person is dead, right? So somebody could look at that and be like, oh my gosh, is somebody going to die? Which we know that that's not what the meaning of that card is. Same with the death card. It's like if it's overly like depicting actual literal death, I don't necessarily enjoy that. And the other card is Judgment. I love the Judgment card. Like, I love the meaning of what that card stands for. But again, if there's like people coming out of coffins or like you're in a cemetery, I feel like if people were to see that card, it would be like, oh my gosh, someone's going to die. Which again, that's not how we read the tarot or how we would interpret that if we were working with clients. I just get that sense of like anything with like overly, pictures that make it look like a death scene, like a literal death scene. I don't really enjoy that. I'll say that.
So you want little softer edges in your tarot decks. Is that,
I think so.
Am I right? Or am I putting words in your mouth?
No, I think decks that I'll use that I use with clients, I always explain to them beforehand if they understand the tarot, if they know that there's certain cards in the tarot that could appear as confronting. I'll explain that to them ahead of time. I do have decks that are not like, they're not soft decks, like as Sasha Graham would say, like to use with shadow work, right? And there are a lot of confronting images on those cards. And I use those for my own personal practice, knowing that if I were to use that in a reading, like I'm not using that in a reading for clients. So, it's kind of like a 50-50. I'm now at this point in my practice where I'm okay to use decks that have confronting images for me in my own healing journey. Am I ready to use those with clients at this point? No. So yes, having something that's a little bit softer to use with clients is my preference. I guess I'll say that.
Wow, that's interesting because that's really interesting. I love that you kind of keep the client response or the client's reaction to certain cards in mind while you're looking for a tarot deck. And I only said soft, and I didn't want to put words in your mouth, but I think because I know of at least two of the decks that you'll use and that you use with clients, and of course one is Chrisanne's Lightseer's Tarot. I always want to think Muse, but that's the other one. I know that's not the one you use.
Oh, I love the Muse too. Oh,
right.
Yes.
But more collage style. But the Lightseer's is, I mean, it's called Light Seer for a reason. Like there is a real lightness to most of the cards, and I think even that's the one where death is actually not called death; it's called rebirth, isn't it?
It's death and rebirth. It has both of them, yeah.
And that's the one with the reflection, like it's like a
yes,
a
it's like the Grim Reaper, right?
Yes.
But in the face is like almost like a forest scene. So it's almost like this sense of rebirth with it. So the card is not overly like, you don't look at it and be like, oh my goodness, someone's dead in that card, right? Like
That's interesting. That's interesting. I know you mentioned the Ten of Swords because I was thinking of a deck that I think we both do. Do you have the Tarot of the Abyss?
Yes.
Yes, we both have that. That is a card. That is a deck that actually has two iterations of the Ten of Swords, and you and I prefer the different version of that. You like the one where the swords are all, I think, in the gentleman's beard, and I prefer the one that looks very much more like the Rider-Waite-Smith version with the swords that are not actually in the beard, but are buried in the person. Because the Ten of Swords that would be a card that I would look at as well. And it probably follows a theme for me where I want the artist representation in a deck that I buy, because I would, for the most part, look for kind of Rider-Waite-Smith inspired decks.
That's another great point to talk about too, right? Like, in terms of if you appreciate the Rider-Waite-Smith, right? Purchasing decks that sort of follow that style is also quite important, right? When you're looking for a deck. Sorry, I cut you off.
No.
Go on.
And all I mean by that is by Rider-Waite-Smith, I like the inspiration of Pamela Coleman Smith, who drew scenery on the ace, the 10, and the 4 suits. Whereas the other, I call them the 2 branches or families, either the Marseille or the Toth deck, Crowley and Harris's deck. Neither one of those have scenes in their pips, like in their ace to 10 cards. They have a stylized version of 7 coins or 6 cups or 10 swords. But you've got Pamela Coleman Smith, who started the idea through the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn of drawing scenes that link to the interpretation. So I want the scenes. I like illustrated cards. I like all 78 cards illustrated, although there are some that I have that don't do that, and I quite like them. The Wildwood Tarot is one that kind of comes to mind, where it's kind of black and white. I think there's symbolism on the ace to 10. Somebody in the comments will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's the Wildwood Tarot. The Fountain Tarot, I think, is another one where it is kind of Toth style, and I like both of those. But for the most part, I'm looking for scenes. And I want the scenes. They don't have to be a replication of the Rider-Waite-Smith. That's not it at all. Like I said, my most recent deck, the which I'll mention a couple of times, the Winter Season Tarot, does not do that at all. But the interpretation that you see in the scene, you can absolutely link to the Rider-Waite-Smith. And when we do our card draw at the end of this episode, I'm going to use that deck. I think I said I was going to use it last time, and I didn't. I'm going to use that deck. It's all set and ready to go. And I'm hoping if I pull a pip, you'll see what I mean. So that's one. 10 of Swords I would look for that one. 10 of Wands I would look for as well. I want to see, because those are two, kind of over the top, maybe, challenging cards as far as the 10s go. And I like the 10s because the 10s have a good balance of, you kind of have 2 cards that are over the top. Oh my goodness, it's, sunshine and rainbows, literally. And then you have the other one that the other 2 that are not. So I want to see, did the deck creator, it's kind of easy to do the 10 of Cups and the 10 of Pentacles or 10 of Coins, right? Because they're pretty happy, rainbow style cards. But I want to see, well, what did they do with the 10 of Wands and the 10 of Swords? How did they portray that? And, this is where we differ. I'm okay. I don't want graphic. I'm not a big fan of graphic. But I guess I want my challenging cards to show a pretty confronting image to challenge. But the difference is I'm pretty consistent in client work in using my Rider-Waite-Smith, the Centennial Edition of my Rider-Waite. Although, again, my new deck is going to be making its way, and it's the first time in quite some time, where I'm going to be using a different deck with clients. So anyways, that's, the 10 for sure, a 10 of Swords for sure. 10 of Wands would be another one though. Were there others? You had mentioned others. Yeah. I would definitely go to the Magician. I like the portrayal of the Magician, and then the Empress too, because I think that gives a nice balance of the kinds of energies that are in the cards. And I always drawn to that Venusian sort of Empress style energy. So I will definitely go and look at that card. Again, as a matter of fact, the Empress is portrayed on the back box of the Winter Season Tarot that, I just bought. So that was sort of a deal maker for me. I didn't want to go through the deck because of the band that was there. But I could see the Empress on the back, and I was like, oh yeah, I love the interpretation. I can see the themes of the Empress, and it looks nothing like Pamela Coleman Smith's image of the Empress. So, that's kind of what sold me. So there's that card. Those are probably the biggies. The 10s, Empress, Magician, I might look at the Tower card. I might look at the Death card. I might look at the Aces. But for the most part, it's 10-10 Empress Magician.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, probably my top, I'd say top 5. So I would look at the 10 of Swords, Death. I would look at the Tower, the Devil, and the High Priestess. So I'm looking at all the challenging cards.
All the
see how bad they are. But I love a good.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. But the High Priestess is important for me. I love the Empress too. So like I agree with you with all of those cards: Magician, Empress, the 10s. I love the idea of the 10 of Wands. I do look at the 10 of Wands to be like, oh, interesting how they interpreted that. But yeah, High Priestess is a big one for me because I want to see how they're portraying the High Priestess. There's like a lot of honorable mentions too that I like, cards that I absolutely love. And if a deck creator has done them really well, that will really sway me. I love the Star card, Temperance. If the Temperance card, if I don't love the Temperance card, that bothers me. Because Temperance is so important for me. It is one of the cards that I actually have it behind me. It's always out. And
I can see it.
Yeah, you can see it, right? That's the Art Nouveau, I believe, the Golden Art Nouveau. Yeah, and then I have the Strength card there too. But yeah, Temperance, it's like, oh, if they do Temperance well, I love that. Judgment, same. So I think those cards that really, you know what I'm going to say? Actually, I'm just thinking about it. It's like, I think cards that really have an impact for you when you see them for your own reading or even when you're reading for clients, I think that's really what's drawing you to how well the deck creator did that. Because it's almost like when you see that come up in a reading, you're like, ugh. And if you love it, you're going to get so much out of it. So yeah, I would say those. I also love the Queen of Wands. She's my girl. I want to be the Queen of Wands. If the Queen of Wands is awesome, I love that. So I have a bunch more that I could talk about, but there's just certain cards that are like, if they're done really well and the other ones are meh, it might actually sway you to get the deck, even if you're not super crazy about it, just from a few cards in the deck. What do you think, Peter? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Because I think for me, there are, the cards I mentioned, and I think they would be my make or break cards. I'd want them to resonate with me. And I'm okay with them going, oh, that's not what I expected. And then sitting with it a little bit and then being, now I know exactly where they went, and it can kind of grow on me, I think. And being able to do that, whether it's through, a flip through video, or whether, the creator has images online, or whether you can actually manipulate the cards where you're buying them. But it is nice to be able to sit with them for a little bit. But like you, I have some honorable mentions. And then some cards where it's like, yeah, I don't really care. Like, and I don't mean that to be like, whatever. But some of the other cards you mentioned too, the Tower, I think I mentioned that before. Death would be one I would look at. I would look at the Sun as well, because I always like, the Sun's, the interpretation of the Sun.
If the Sun is meh, that bothers me. Right? Like the Sun has to be awesome.
Yeah. The Hermit and the Hierophant would be two as well that, I would look at. And then I want to look as to how they're portraying the suits. So, I talked about the idea of wanting to follow the guidelines of the Rider-Waite-Smith, but I'm not locked into it having to be, swords and wands and pentacles and cups. Because again, as I've mentioned, the Gaian tarot deck, one of my favorite of all time, is the 4 elements that are linked, but it's the 4 elements linked kind of hermetically or esoterically to each of the 4 suits. So I know that water is going to represent the cups. I know that fire is going to represent the wands. So I want that kind of a connection, and I want to see how the creator has done that. It's sometimes as well, like when they rename a card, The recent deck doesn't call it the devil, but the demon. And I think that's actually an interest. I don't think I had encountered that, at least not in recent memory before. And then so I went and, kind of read in the little white book that accompanies the the deck, and looked at the justification of that. And I thought, wow, it's really an interesting, kind of an interesting path. So, I'm not so much of a traditionalist as, everything's got to be exactly the same. So I'll look for that, but that's not make or break for me. I think there are certain cards that will do it for me. The other thing is it has to be, and I'll always check. And I didn't used to do this until the kind of big sort of fake and knockoff deck movement. I will look to make sure that it's a genuine deck. And my understanding is the best way to be able to do that is to look. If you look and see a QR code that causes you to have to download the book that comes with it, there's a pretty good chance that that's actually and price point. If the price point is
if the deck is super cheap,
dollars, or we're talking Canadian dollars here. If it's a really cheap deck, then there's a pretty good chance that it's a pirated deck, that it wasn't done by the creator. So I don't think I own, nor have I ever willingly owned, a pirated deck. I want to make sure that the money is going in a channel that the person who created the deck, or the people who created the deck, has authorized. So that's another important thing, which means I'm paying more for a deck. So, okay, it means I'm going to buy less decks, but I'm in the privilege.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I didn't even think about that. That is make or break for me, 100%. I would never willingly purchase a pirated deck, and I don't own one either. So I'm like that too. If I'm looking online and there's different prices of decks, I'm like, oh, interesting, why that is so cheap. Even if you go to vendor shows. If you go to vendor shows and people are selling like well-known tarot decks for $10, they're probably not the original. It's probably a pirated.
Well, I had a conversation. You and I went to a local vendor, kind of psychic fair, where the person had 3 decks on their table that were clearly pirated decks. And I let them know. And I felt a little arrogant doing it, but I just said, look, and I didn't make a scene. I just said, I just want to let you know, these 3 decks here, they're not done by the creator. I don't know where you got them, but I'm just telling you. And of course, then I'm not going to support a vendor who's not going to do that, who's not going to, kind of be discerning with what they're selling. And they didn't make a scene or anything. They didn't know, and they just said, kind of, thank you for
telling. And that's just it. People don't know, right? Especially if you're new to tarot, oracle, when you go to a show and you're like, oh, wow, like I'm going to buy a deck. They're $10 or whatever. You don't know. And that's okay. Like nobody's shaming or judging. But if you do know, then that's where you can be discerning in terms of what you choose to support. So
exactly. And there we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for bringing that up, Peter.
Public service announcement today, in support of tarot and oracle deck creators everywhere. Anything else about a deck? Because I think of things like color and theme. Is there anything else that you look at where you're and maybe it is primary to you. Like, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah. Okay. So I have a few things. I do love a themed deck. I will say, if the deck is done really well and there's a theme associated with it, I really like that, especially Halloween. I love Halloween decks. But yeah, any type of theme, again, if it's done really well, then I appreciate that. If there, again, I think about the client in this respect, and even for me too, but if there's a lot of like snakes and mice in decks, that kind of throws me off a little bit, because again, I think about reading for clients, and a lot of people don't want to see, like, I have a friend, a really close friend, and she gets so freaked out by snake. Like, even just if I were to do a reading, like, I would know which deck I could use for her, because there's no way I would use a deck that had like a snake in it. So I think sometimes the imagery that's on the cards, if there's, I mean, we all have decks that have that in it, but if there's a lot of that, I know that I've been like, oh no, this deck isn't for me. It has way too much of that in it. So that tends to, sort of sway me one way or the other, but I do like decks that have animal representation in them. Instead of people, they have animals. And I think, again, in terms of that, almost like takes away the, like, if something is a little bit confronting, if it's not an actual person on the deck, but it's like an animal, not that it's okay to have a confronting image with an animal, but sometimes I think that could be like a softer way of seeing an image if it's not like the actual, like a human being on there. So I do like animals in decks. I like landscape kind of type decks. So I like different kinds of things. I've always sort of taken this path of like, oh, is that different? I want to look at that and see that. So things like that I really appreciate. I also like borderless. I'm not a huge fan of borders on the cards. I feel like if you have the space to put the whole image on the card, just use the whole card as opposed to. So it's not make or break for me. This now is more about preference, but I'm not a big fan of borders. And okay, one more. I'm going to add one more thing. Just because, again, of my whole like, oh, making it more gentle. I like when there's no words on the cards. So like the death card, if it doesn't say death on it and it's not like a dead person, not a dead person, it's usually not a dead person, but like a skeleton or like, you know, somebody's coming to get you. I like that because, again, it doesn't like freak the person out right away. So I do kind of like decks that don't have words on them, but has the number and then some type of symbol that you can tell what the suit is or if it's a major or minor arcana card. But that's just me. And that was also me testing myself in the beginning when I was like, oh, do I really know? Like, what does this card actually mean? Or what card is this? So I like decks that test me a little bit in terms of not being overly like, this is the Empress or this is the emperor, right? Like, I'm going to look at that and be like, like I'm going to look at the image and be like, I know what this is. So I like that.
So you wouldn't be a fan of like the easy tarot where the interpretation text is literally
right on it.
Right on the card?
You know what? That's not bad. It's great for beginners. It's also great for like workshops and classes if people aren't familiar with tarot or even like I teach a meditation class every Monday and I put out a card for everybody. And there's usually, it's not a tarot card that I'm using generally, but there'll be like a saying or something on it. So I think that's okay and it has its place, but I like to be challenged. So I have a deck. It's called I believe it's called the Botanical Tarot. It's pictures of flowers. There are no words on it and there's symbols. So you can't even tell from the flower what the card is, like if it's a major card, but they have different symbols and it tests you to make you be like, oh, is this the Hierophant or is this the Emperor? Like they both have a crown. So I like stuff like that.
We would definitely differ there. I think it's good for you for, wanting to be challenged. I don't want to be challenged that much in my tarot deck. I want, especially the minor arcana. I want the names on the minor arcana. As a matter of fact, I think if the card doesn't
minor or the majors?
Minor.
You want the names on the minors?
I do. I wanted to say the Nine of Pentacles. I wanted to say the Knight of Wands. I want it on there for sure. Yeah, because I don't. Yeah, I don't know why, but look, I think I have decks that don't, or that have a symbol, or that might have like a shorthand. I don't mind so much with the big archetypal images because they're usually pretty easy. But I want to know what the card is. I want to know what the card is because for the most part, my interpretation system is going to be based on my knowledge, of the Rider-Waite-Smith and its esoteric stuff, and then I'd be bringing in interpretation based on the image of the creator. But I'm still, for me, the Nine of Pentacles doesn't change necessarily depending on the deck I'm using. It alters or it might broaden, but it doesn't change. So yeah, I want that text. Okay, so the Venn diagram in which our collections, is starting to expand a little bit. The overlap is less and less. Yeah, but I do I'm not, and again, I'm not a fan of animal representations. I want humanity.
Mm,
However, I'm definitely, when I'm looking at a modern deck, one of the unless it's now if it's themed, I'm a little bit more forgiving. Like if it's themed, I mean by fantasy themed, but even then, that's probably not a genre I'm going to go into. But I want the people to be representative of the world I live in. So I don't
mm,
want all thin people. I don't want all white
yes.
people. I don't want genders associated with the court cards. I don't want genders associated with the majors. I love a creator who, will put, a female emperor, for example,
Hmm.
or a female hierophant, which would move away from the traditional Messiah rider weight. So I want that. And as a matter of fact, things like the Urban Tarot, and one of the reasons why I really like, Isabella Rotman's This Might Hurt is because it has a much more realistic portrayal of people that are in there. They are, they're all abilities. They're all shapes and sizes. They are all skin tones, even gender, both male, female, and fluid. I want that in a deck, especially when I'm buying a deck in 2025. I know
Mm.
that doesn't represent the Rider-Waite Smith because it was done in 1909. But if I'm using a deck now and it's got people representing it, I'm looking for a modern representation of civilization. So that's
Yeah, and that's definitely a make or break, right? Like for people who are purchasing decks now, I think yeah, you're right. The older decks might not have been so great at uh sort of
Yep.
representation, but the new decks that are coming out definitely have a lot more of that, and yeah, we appreciate that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And then
Oh,
no, go ahead.
sorry,
No,
go
no,
ahead.
no, no. By all
No, I
means,
was
go.
just going to ask you a question.
Okay.
So there's a lot of, so for me, this is okay because I identify as female, but there's a lot of decks that are feminine based
Mhm.
decks, right? Like where most of the people portrayed in the deck are feminine. They may have like some like masculine kings or the emperor or some representation of males. But so as a male, how do you like, would you not buy, like, is that a make or break for you? Would you not
No,
buy a deck that was like primarily female? Like,
no,
do you know what I'm saying? Like, do you know what I mean?
no, totally. And no, for a variety of reasons. One is I'll almost say as it should be, since when I think of our listener demographic, for example, and I think of most of the people when we go to we've been to a tarot conference together. I've been to tarot shows together. The vast majority, and I mean the vast majority of people who are in all likelihood using the tarot, most of the people listening to our podcast, identify based on the demographic data that we have as female. So why wouldn't tarot
Mm.
decks lean towards more female representation? Like, I exist in this world, I identify as male, I'm white, I'm middle-aged, I live in a privileged country. I can find myself in an awful lot of places. I'm okay not finding myself in a tarot deck. Do you know what I mean? So no, it's not, um, that's, it would be intriguing. I don't think I've ever found a male-based,
Mm.
tarot deck. That would be intriguing, but no, there's not, no.
That's not a deal breaker for you.
No, definitely not a deal breaker for me.
It
Definitely
just came up.
not. Yeah.
I was
I
like,
don't
oh, that
like
would be
it.
interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain themes that I don't particularly get drawn to. But yeah, the like sort of primarily more a more feminine based deck or, wouldn't turn me off at all. Actually, wouldn't turn me away from the deck. So
Gotcha.
good question. Oh, good question. All right. Yeah.
So any final words there, Peter, about like make or break? Like
No, 'cause
what would sway you one way or the other?
the more we kind of talk, the more I think, oh, I think about this and that. Like there are some, and I will say, I know my tastes have changed over time.
Hmm.
So I know that initially, and I've got some decks now that I would have had easily for 25 30 years.
Yeah, I
But
know,
they-
because you tell me about them and you're like, oh, you can't get this one
Can't get them
anymore.
anymore,
Like, so then
right?
why do you show it to me?
Right? So, I think the original Gilded Tarot.
Mm-hmm.
The, what's oh my goodness, Palladini's, the Aquarian Tarot.
Ooh, I have that.
Yeah, I think you can still get that. But
Yep.
again, this is
I
one
have
that was,
that in a tin.
right? And I think I have it both tin and regular size. The Morgan Greer, these are all what would have been decks, Hanson Roberts. They would have all been early decks that I would have bought, all very much based on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And those would have probably been the earliest decks that I would have added to my collection. And I would have been, if it's not looking like the Rider-Waite-Smith, I'm not touching it. And I think the first deck I would have branched out with would have been the Druid Craft. But even that, even though some of the names are different, for the most part, it's very much a Druid/pagan-based deck, but it still exists inside the Rider-Waite-Smith world. And then the first deck I would have bought that I would have used a lot would have been, Joanna Powell Colbert's deck, the Gaian Tarot deck, which is nothing like, or the images are nothing like the Rider-Waite-Smith, although when you dig into it, they kind of are. It's, if Pamela Coleman Smith had drawn a deck and then with the underlying, idea is go and connect to nature with every card, then it probably would have looked very much like that. And then now I think a much broader, some of my favorite decks, like I've been digging into the Urban Tarot quite a bit. Of course, This Might Hurt. They have a little bit of a cartoony look, but, they sort of broaden the look or the interpretation or the feel of a Rider-Waite-Smith, and then there's somewhere, it's like they're either theme-based, and yeah. So, I even Oracle decks now, I even have a couple of Oracle decks, whereas somebody had said that before, I'd have been, no, never. I guess I want some work. I want to know that I could do some spiritual work with it as well. Like, and by that I mean, some of my own work, and some of them I just buy to have. I can see in the Horror Tarot by Todd Alpin.
Cool. You know what? I think I need to add that one to my collection. I don't have that one yet.
And that nothing to do with anything other than, going through it and going, oh my goodness, when he selects like a paperback or, Pulp Fiction or a movie poster and you go, oh, I love that. I get it. Exactly. Right. I get it. So, I'm more open to decks like that, which is bad for me because it means I'm spending more money on tarot decks too, but oh well, I don't know. What about you? Any kind of last minute things that come to mind about, the decks?
Yeah, I think the artwork definitely plays a role. Like if you're not crazy about the artwork, then that's just going to turn you off. Or if you love it, then you're going to be like, oh my God, I love this artwork. So I think that plays a big role. There are certain styles of artwork that I'm not a fan of. So I'll look at some of the cards. I'll be like, nah, this isn't for me. So I think that plays a big role. What else? I think, yeah, the other thing you touched upon, which I think is worth mentioning again, is that some deck creators change the names of cards and they change the names of the suits. So that is not a deal breaker for me because if I can understand why they did that or if it makes sense to me, then that's okay for me. I won't not buy a deck if they've done that. And I do love a good Marseille deck. So I do like pips. So like I do like decks where there's not a picture on every single card. Again, I think that's my mind being like, like what can you see in this imagery of like 10 cups that isn't an actual picture of something. So that kind of I'm enamored by that a little bit. So yeah, I think we're pretty open in terms of like the different styles of tarot decks that we have. And once you start looking into decks, you'll find what your preference is. But again, there's probably those few cards that are like, well, if there's going to be one thing, right, that's going to make you say yes or make you say no is probably going to have to do with some of those cards. But overall, too, if you're not crazy about the imagery altogether or the artwork, it doesn't matter what a card is going to look like. You're probably not going to be drawn to it. So
yeah, and I think you're going to find, and that's a really, really good point, right? You're not going to be drawn to it, or in the opposite of that is you'll find something that's really kind of odd or outlying, that's an outlier, and you're totally drawn to it, and you don't know why.
Yes.
I know I said, I don't like, I want my pip cards illustrated, and yet I'm sure I have a half dozen or more decks that are more along a Marseille or Toth style deck where the pips aren't illustrated, and I bought them anyways because something connected with the deck. So I have guidelines, I don't have hard and fast rules, and of course I'm pretty open to, kind of bending that. Now I'm probably going to take my collection out now, and I'm going to basically take an inventory and be like, okay, so if I was going to group them, what would they look like? And, because to me, the decks that I know I'm going to use or I'm more likely to use, I actually keep them like they're literally right here, to my right, and the other ones kind of go behind the curtain. Out of their box is a stack of loose cards, like deck by deck. I think there's probably 20 to 25 of them back there. And I got to go.
We should get together one day and just look at each other's decks.
Oh,
I think that would be fun.
That would be fun. We've got that big giant dining room table that I think is like, 2 meters plus by a meter. It's great for gaming for me. When my gaming group comes by, it's usually here because we can lay out some pretty heavy games, but it would be good to lay out the cards too. We should totally do that.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Should we do our draw? Is that where we're at now? Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to shuffle. The one thing I realized I haven't done is I talked about doing shuffling music, and I still haven't actually done that. I'm going to have to get on
Peter.
that. I am going to be working on the playlist, though, again, for those of you who were following along with the Dinner with the Majors. So expect the playlist that goes along with that.
I'm so excited. We talked about a lot of great songs.
Yeah, we really did. So there will be the Tarot with Bonnie and Peter Dinner with the Majors playlist, likely on Spotify, because that's sort of where we kind of, we don't really host our podcast there, but it's kind of where I go in and sort of upload all the stuff. So Tarot with Bonnie and Peter has an account there, but I've got an account on Apple. They're the two kind of major streaming services. I like using their, I don't particularly like how they treat their artists, but unfortunately, it's also where you can find the bulk of popular music. But anyways, I digress. I'm shuffling. All right, there we go. Oh, all right. Okay, well, I said I hope I draw a pip card that, that she has those illustrated pip cards and whatnot, and that's exactly what I did. So there we go. How about you? You ready? Okay. Do you want to start?
No, you go ahead.
No, you go. I think I've gone the last couple of times I've gone first. So why don't you, if you've got your card there, you go ahead.
Okay, this is so funny. We were just talking about this. So in the spirit of, my excitement of using Halloween inspired decks, this is not a Halloween deck, but I think it kind of goes with the theme, with the spirit of Halloween. Yeah. It's the Darkwood Tarot by Sasha Graham, and illustrated by Abigail Larson. I do love this deck, so I thought I would pull it out today for our card draw. And funny, so I pulled the 10 of Pentacles, and it is very pip inspired.
Yeah.
Right? So here we have a tree, like a really old tree, and there's, sort of the hollow center, and then there's 10 pentacles on the tree. So there's really there's nothing in this picture that is, I don't know, shall we say inspired by the writer Wade Smith, although it is a tree. Correct. And if we think about the tree of life with the pentacles on the tree, we could associate that with it. But it is, I do love the interpretation of this card. It has 10 pentacles on this tree that almost looks lifeless. So the 10 of Pentacles, this is a great card. And when we think about the Ten of Pentacles, for me, it always reminds me of being grateful for the abundance that I have in my life. So if we think about the Pentacles as a suit, we can think about like abundance. And what does that mean for us? That's like those physical things in our life. That's our bodies, it's our homes, it's our jobs, it's our car, it's our family. So and when we're at the 10, this is now like we have an abundance of that energy. And if you're almost in that state of like, oh, I would like that energy, but maybe I'm not necessarily feeling that. Well, the best way to sort of elevate your frequency to meet that energy would be to be grateful, right? So if we really look around and see all of the things that we have to be grateful for, that really helps you to come into this energy of abundance. It's also too like this legacy, right? And I think about too, like, if we think about legacy, like what is it that we want to leave? You know, when we're not here anymore, how do we want either people to remember us by, or how do we want to leave our mark here? And again, that could be abundance, right? Like that could be like gratitude and how we look at life. So if I were to think about that in the context of my own life, the best way for me to leave a legacy for my family, sure, financially, that would be wonderful if I could leave them lots of wealth. But if I could leave them with this idea of really being grateful for the things that you have in your life. And once you embrace this idea of gratitude, then more can come, right? So I'm thinking about that's the type of legacy that I would want to leave for my own kids and my own family. Because if we grow up with that idea of abundance and gratitude, then you can have anything. So that was a bit of a tangent, but that's where I'm going with the Ten of Pentacles.
Yes. I love that. And you touched on, I don't know what to add. Like you touch on legacy and you touched on abundance and gratitude. For me, I look at that and it was really funny because I'm so glad you mentioned the idea of the tree of life. But then I also thought, because, I think sometimes tens, and I've mentioned this before, where tens are sometimes they're that over the top. And I sometimes think that the Ten of Pentacles actually invites us because it's almost overabundance. And it's like, well, how can we then, because to me, I always think the Nine of Pentacles is all about my accumulation and what I've got, and I'm celebrating in the fruits of my labor. Whereas the tens, I go beyond that. And, you touched on that with the word legacy. And when I saw that picture, I thought of Shel Silverstein's The Giving Tree. And I thought about the idea of, and I know that's a controversial story. Sometimes some people think, it's well, somebody basically gave themselves, and they were dead at the end. This poor tree gave this kid everything. But it's the idea of, of having something and having so much of something that we're actually prepared to give it to others. And I sometimes think the Ten of Pentacles is like that. It's like, what, I'm grateful for what I have, and in whatever kind of Pentacles category that happens to be, which includes gratitude, that I'm actually prepared to spread that to elsewhere, which also, could define the word legacy as well, right? How do I leave my legacy? Well, I let my work influence other people. So, I kind of send, what my energy, I send my work onto others. So when I saw that tree, I was like, oh, because the tree looks like it's dying, and yet the life looks like it's in the Pentacles. So I thought of the Giving Tree, which is, I think I'm pretty sure it's Shel Silverstein. So.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And that is such an important component too, because when we do have an abundance of whatever that is, it does feel so good to share that with others, right? And then you're just creating sort of the circle of abundance for yourself, but also being able to experience that and share that with other people. So thank you for...
Well, and you said the key, because that 10, that idea of circle of abundance. So when you share and you send that out, when your legacy, connects to other people, you get them ready to then be the Ace of Pentacles again, right? They get to be the ace that plants a new seed, that starts a new journey. So it like when you think about it, that's actually a beautiful image in Sasha's deck that highlights both that overabundance, that ability to share everything that I have in the Ten of Pentacles, with that cycle of, what comes next in the Ace.
Awesome.
Woo-hoo. Okay. Ooh,
okay, what do you have for us, Peter?
I have the Ace of Cups, or sorry, the Eight. I have the Eight of cups.
Okay.
So the only reason I was like, 'cause it says, I'm so glad it says 8 of cups at the top. So those of you that are watching, I'll show you the card because there are no cups. There are not 8 cups. It's actually, so this is one of the things that kind of drew me, right? So this is a person who has turned their back on where they live, on their city, and are just looking for the new chapter up and away into the wilderness. So they've got their backpack. They're all ready to face a winter's day. It looks, well, that could either be an eclipse in the sky. I'm going to have to go to, sorry, this is the Winter Season Tarot, Danielle Norman. Again, I said I was going to use this deck. So 8 of Cups is a scene of somebody who is, they sort of have that comfort, what looks like a city or town life, and yet it's not meeting their needs, and they're taking the path that's in front of them, and they're walking up and towards what really is the darkness, of the wilderness and the mountains with that, what might be an eclipse, signaling change, chaotic change sometimes. So I love this scene of the card, right? There's nothing about that doesn't resemble the 8 of Cups in the Rider-Waite-Smith, and yet it does, right? It's somebody in the foreground walking towards the background. There's a path that you have to really look forward to see them follow. They are walking away from something that looks comfortable, yet that doesn't serve them anymore, towards something that is that's kind of in the distance, and that is unknown, but they're taking that risk anyways. They're taking that emotional risk because it's 8 of Cups and saying, okay, I'm done. I'm getting myself ready. This is a winter day. I'm bringing everything I've got. I'm making myself comfortable for now, and away I go. So yeah, it's another one of those cards. And anyways, I'll hold it up again for those people who are watching. When I first saw the card initially, I thought this was someone on a bike. I thought, they got a fatty out there, like a big fatty tire bike out there. But then I looked and it's like, oh no, they're actually walking. It's their backpack. So yeah,
I love that. What a gorgeous image on that card, and you get it right away when you're looking at it, right?
Totally. Yeah. What about you? 8 of Cups.
You know what? I like the 8 of Cups. It can be one of those cards that's like, the 8 of Cups, but it really sparks this energy of like something isn't working anymore, and you like are going on an adventure. So although it's like you're leaving something behind, but you're also heading out towards something that's really going to be good for you, even though, it might be uncomfortable. Like she's walking in a snowstorm. Nobody wants to walk in a snowstorm, but it's like, it doesn't make sense, but she has to do it to follow the path of where she really needs to go. And I love what you said too about the 8 of Cups. It's like, it doesn't always have to make sense, right? Sometimes you just know you have to do something and people are like, you're crazy. Like, why are you leaving all this behind to go do this thing, right? But it's like, right? When we think about cups, what is cups? Cups is intuition. It's that gut feeling. And it's like, no, I need to go, even if it's going to be hard or I'm leaving back comforts that's familiar to me. There's something out there that I need to go either in search of or follow this path. So I think it takes a lot of strength to do that in the 8 of Cups. And it's that card that's like, no, like if like follow your intuition, follow your gut and do what you need to do. So.
Yeah, because you know what card sometimes follows the 8 of Cups if we don't follow that? The Tower.
Yeah,
right?
It's going to force you anyway.
Change is going to come anyway. It's going to be the big lightning bolt that, and what a better way, like I agree with everything you said, what a better way to control the change and to follow your heart and be like, no, like this is the path that I'm being called to go on. I'm just going to get ready with what I have, and I'm going to be grateful for the things that have served me. Yet I'm going to be open to the next chapter. So I'm the same. The 8 of Cups is a card I actually quite like, and I actually love this interpretation because I think sometimes in the Rider-Waite-Smith it can look a little bleak. So there you go, 2 cards. 2 pretty interesting cards too.
Yeah.
Lots to talk about. All right. Speaking of lots to talk about, you've got some big local stuff and things kind of, coming up as well. So do you want to talk to people about that?
Sure, I'd love to. Thanks, Peter. So I am participating in a collaboration with 3 other incredible people. It's going to be called, well, it's not going to be called, it is called the Empress Experience. It's a half-day retreat in a farm just outside of Tottenham, Ontario. So if you're in the GTA or in Southern Ontario, come check us out. You can see all the details on my website, which is breathewithbonnie.com. You can even go to tarotwithbonnieandpeter.com. And then from there, you can link in to find out more. So yeah, we're going to have 4 practitioners there. So myself included. So I'll be doing tarot readings, mini tarot readings. There'll be astrology readings, sound bath healings, and feng shui consultations, as well as yoga. I'll be guiding a yoga nidra meditation. So it's going to be a lot of fun. If you're in the area, check it out. Spaces are filling up and we don't have a lot. It's going to be very intimate. So if you're interested in that, I would encourage you to go check it out as soon as you can. So yeah, breathewithbonnie.com, tarotwithbonnieandpeter.com. You can find all the details. So how about you, Peter?
Great.
What do you have going on? Where can people find you?
Well, same. People can always find me at peterwhitetarot.com or tarotwithbonnieandpeter.com. 2 things. Cards of Libra actually, will be coming up. I think it's September the 20th. So that's the next installment of my Cards of the Zodiac series. So, information will be coming shortly on my website. And that is where I go over all the cards that are associated with a particular sign. Plan, of course, is to cover all 12 signs of the Zodiac and therefore all 78, signs or 78 cards of the tarot. We go into some of the information and the background information on the cards themselves, but then we take a look at some practical ways to be able to use both that astrological and tarot energy during that period. So if that's of interest to you, by all means, pop over to my website through either of those 2 channels to check it out. The second thing is I use the Winter Season Tarot by Danielle Norman today. I actually wrote a blog post and a deck review, which I haven't done in quite some time. So for that, I'll include the links to that actually in the show notes below. Go and have a read. I was actually thrilled that the deck creator actually went and read the review and then actually put a comment on the review itself. So, that was great. I really have been quite touched by this deck. So if you want to know more about why this deck resonated with me, then by all means go and have a brief read of that blog post. So that's it. That's it for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm definitely going to have to check that out, Peter. And that deck, I don't know that I'm going to have to add that one to my list.
Well, the post includes the link to her Etsy store as well. And again, this is not a paid promotion. It's just like one tarot person to, all the others that are listening. If this is a deck that resonates with you, and some people have commented because I put it on Instagram, that it is a stunning deck if, this is something that you like. So yeah, thank you. If you read it, you have to let me know what you think. So.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And thank you for listening to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter and joining us here. We appreciate you so much. If you love this episode, please like it, leave a really nice review, share it with your friends, and let us know if there's any deal breaker cards for you. We're definitely interested to know what might sway you to buy or not buy a tarot deck. So thanks again for listening, and we will see you next time on Tarot with Bonnie and Peter. Bye.
Bye.